The judge stopped mid-sentence and looked straight at us. The room went quiet in a way you only hear in courtrooms, where even breathing feels too loud. He took off his glasses, tapped them once against the bench, and said, slow and clear, I've reviewed the financial records. Someone in this courtroom is lying, and I don't appreciate being lied to. My younger sister didn't blink, but her smile cracked just a little. My mother's hand froze halfway to her face, tissue still dry. My father stared at the table like it might open up and swallow him. I stayed still. I'd been waiting for that sentence for almost 10 years. We were in a federal courthouse in western Colorado, the kind with cold marble floors and flags that never seemed to move. The bankruptcy hearing was supposed to prove I was broke, that I'd failed, that I owed my sister over $1 million from some so-called family investment. They came prepared. New suits, expensive lawyer, thick folders stacked high enough to impress anyone who didn't know better. My sister's attorney spoke first, confident, polished. He told the judge I was irresponsible, that my company was barely hanging on, that my parents had given me every opportunity, and I'd wasted them all. He said my sister stepped in years ago to help me, loaning money when no one else would. Now she just wanted fairness. My mother sniffed softly at all the right moments. My father nodded, jaw tight, like this was painful but necessary. A lesson, maybe. I was sitting beside my lawyer, hands folded, wearing the same navy blazer I'd worn to meetings, flights, and long nights at the office. Nothing flashy. Nothing to prove. The other side thought that meant weakness. What they didn't know, what no one in that room knew yet, was that every document they submitted had already been checked. Every signature, every date, every bank transfer they claimed existed. I'd learned a long time ago not to react too early. Let people talk. Let them commit. The judge turned a page, then another. His eyebrows tightened. That's when the air shifted. This doesn't line up, he said. The timelines don't match. The account numbers don't exist. And the tax filings tell a very different story. My sister finally looked at me. Really looked. For the first time in years, she wasn't sure she was winning. I thought back to where this all started. A modest house outside Boise. A gravel driveway. My dad's pickup truck always parked crooked. Family dinners that felt more like performance reviews. I was the older one. The practical one. The one who was supposed to help, not lead. They'd spent years saying I was unrealistic, too stubborn, too quiet, that I should be grateful, that I needed them. The judge cleared his throat. Counsel, he said, I suggest you prepare to explain yourselves. And right then, sitting in that courtroom, I knew something they didn't. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the moment the truth finally caught up to them. While the judge reviewed the records in silence, my mind drifted somewhere else. Not to strategy, not to fear. Back to a kitchen table I hadn't sat at in years. It was a small ranch-style house, vinyl siding, built sometime in the late 80s. Nothing fancy. A microwave that always beeped too loud. A coffee maker that never got cleaned properly. That was where everything first split apart. Growing up, my parents believed in clear roles. My sister Emily was the bright one, the social one, the one people noticed. I was the reliable one, the helper, the one expected to be smart about things. That phrase came up a lot. At 18, Emily got encouragement. At 18, I got responsibility. When she wanted to study business out of state, they found a way. Tuition, housing, a used SUV with low mileage. When I talked about starting my own company years later, my father leaned back in his chair and said, That's risky. You don't gamble with your future. Instead, he suggested I stay close. Work with family connections. Keep things safe. I didn't fight much back then. I just nodded. Left early. Drove home alone. The first real break came quietly. No shouting. No dramatic exit. Just distance. Fewer calls. Shorter visits. Then none at all. They assumed I'd circle back eventually. Most people do. Here's the small twist they never expected. I didn't leave angry. I left observant. I paid attention to how money moved, how promises were worded, how help always came with strings. I watched how my sister learned confidence from praise, while I learned caution from silence. And sitting in that courtroom years later, listening to them describe me as careless and dependent, I realized something strange. They weren't lying to hurt me. They were lying because that version of me was the only one that made sense to them. And if that story fell apart, so did everything they believed about themselves. The truth is, my real life didn't look anything like the version my family told the court. After I stopped going home, I didn't disappear. I downsized. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment just outside Fort Collins, Colorado. Second floor, thin walls. Rent was $150 a month back then, which felt steep when every dollar mattered. I drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it and a cracked windshield I never fixed because it didn't affect how it ran. Most mornings started the same way. Coffee from a chipped mug. Local radio on low. Snow reports in winter. Traffic updates for I-25. I'd sit at a folding desk with a laptop that overheated if I pushed it too hard, building something no one around me understood yet. I wasn't chasing a dream. I was solving a problem. I'd spent years working around land use data, compliance paperwork, environmental impact reports. Pages and pages of federal requirements written in language that felt intentionally confusing. I kept thinking there had to be a smarter way. Software that didn't just store data but actually explained risk, showed patterns, flagged problems before they turned expensive. I worked nights, weekends, holidays. I skipped barbecues and birthdays. I learned to measure progress in inches, not miles. One working feature. One clean data pull. One contract email that didn't say no. Money stayed tight. There were months I tracked spending down to the dollar. Gas, groceries, internet. I learned the price of everything. A gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, an oil change. When people talk about bootstrapping, they usually skip this part. Here's the first small twist they never knew. I never asked them for help. Not once. There was no family loan. No quiet transfer. No secret support. The distance wasn't just emotional. It was financial too. I didn't want strings. I didn't want leverage hanging over my head. The company took shape slowly. I hired one contractor, then another, both part-time, paid hourly, no fancy titles. We worked out of shared spaces, libraries, coffee shops, anywhere with decent Wi-Fi. Then, about 5 years in, things shifted. A state agency took a chance on a pilot program. Small budget, tight timeline, real expectations. We delivered. On time. Under budget. The kind of win that doesn't make headlines but changes how people talk about you behind closed doors. That led to another contract. Then another. We upgraded servers, signed a real lease, bought proper chairs, hired full-time staff. I learned what it meant to cover payroll and still sleep at night. I also learned something else. Success doesn't announce itself to the people who doubt you. My parents didn't follow my work. My sister never asked. They assumed silence meant failure, that I was struggling somewhere, waiting to be rescued. It made them comfortable. That comfort is what led them to their biggest mistake. The idea for the lawsuit didn't come from desperation. It came from entitlement. My sister noticed my company's name mentioned in an industry newsletter, then again in a procurement database, then tied to a federal contract with real numbers attached. 7 figures, multi-year. Instead of asking how I did it, she asked why she wasn't part of it. That's when the story changed. Suddenly, she remembered helping me. Suddenly, my parents remembered support. Suddenly, they convinced themselves there had been an understanding, an obligation, a debt. Here's the second twist. They didn't think they were committing fraud. They thought they were correcting history. They hired a lawyer who didn't ask many questions, someone eager, someone impressed by their confidence. Papers were drafted, dates were guessed, signatures were copied from old birthday cards and scanned emails. They filed in bankruptcy court because it's fast, public, disruptive. They assumed the process alone would scare me into settling, paying, admitting weakness. When the notice arrived, my staff panicked. Investors called. One contract paused pending review. That's the part they wanted. But they underestimated something. By then, my company had audits. Clean ones. Third-party verified. Every dollar tracked. Every account documented. I'd learned long ago that boring paperwork is protection. My attorney didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She requested time. Time to let them commit fully. By the time we walked into court, they'd already boxed themselves in. When my lawyer laid out the evidence, it wasn't dramatic. It was methodical. Bank statements, tax filings, time-stamped records, expert analysis. No opinions, just facts. And that's when the third twist hit. The judge didn't just dismiss the case. He referred it to federal investigators. That changed everything. Emails were subpoenaed, drafts recovered, conversations reconstructed. The story my family told cracked under scrutiny. My sister's confidence evaporated. My parents stopped speaking publicly. The consequences unfolded quietly but thoroughly. Charges, settlements, restrictions, doors closing that had always been open to them before. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to, because the real victory wasn't watching them fall. It was watching my team keep working. Contracts resumed, trust returned, growth continued. We opened another office, then another. Life moved forward. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. The real ending didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened months later on a regular Tuesday night, sitting at my kitchen table with the window cracked open, listening to traffic hum in the distance. No lawyers, no judges, just quiet. That's when the final twist settled in. My parents lost status. My sister lost credibility. Their world shrank fast once power and reputation were gone. But that wasn't justice. It was consequence. Justice was realizing I didn't feel the urge to explain myself anymore. For years, I thought winning meant proving them wrong. Showing numbers, success, recognition. I thought integrity required defense. It doesn't. Integrity is what you do when no one is watching. It's building something honestly, even when the people closest to you doubt you. It's refusing shortcuts, even when they're offered as family help. The most uncomfortable truth, and the one worth discussing, is this. They weren't punished for lying about me. They were exposed for lying to themselves. About fairness, about entitlement, about who deserved what. And here's the part I never expected. Once I let go of needing their approval, I gained something far more valuable. Peace. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that lets you sleep, work, and live without carrying old weight. So, if you've ever been undermined by people who were supposed to support you, ask yourself this. Do you want to win the argument? Or do you want to win your life? Because sometimes the strongest move isn't revenge. It's walking forward without them.